From my story to your story, let's talk about grief. I will share my own grief journey, along with interviewing others about their path of sorrow and healing. I hope that you, the listener, will hear something that helps as you navigate your own grief, and that God will be glorified along the way. This content is meant as a discussion and not to give professional help. Let's get started.
Let's pick up with what happened with you on that Friday night when you were talking about, we were discussing earlier about really breaking down on that Friday evening.
Was it?
Well, it was Saturday evening.
Saturday.
It was the evening of the funeral.
The evening of the funeral.
Yeah, evening of the funeral. So, we had, of course, had cried times throughout the week and just kind of been in shock and stuff, but never had a real breakdown moment. And so we had a lot of our friends and family come to the funeral, and one of Ashley's dear friends came to the funeral and wanted to see her afterwards and kind of hang out with her and maybe go to dinner with her. And she's like, "Are you okay? Is that going to be okay?" I'm like, "Just go." So I was in the house. I couldn't have Connor with me, so Connor was, I think, with your parents. Mm-hmm. And so I was by myself. Mm-hmm. And up until this time, the nursery door had been shut.
Okay.
It was shut that night, and when he passed, and it was never open.
Okay.
So...
And this is about how long after his death?
A week.
A week.
Okay.
This is a week after he passed. And so I remember I'm sitting in our living room, and I get up, and I walk down the hallway, and I go and stand in front of his door, and I open the door, and I just walk right in, and I get about 3 steps in, and I start screaming. I start screaming at the top of my lungs. I start yelling. I start saying, "Lord, why'd you do that?" I demanded that the Lord bring him back to me now. Bring him back in my arms. It wasn't fair. He needs to be in my arms, holding him, and I'm like clenching my fists. I'm shaking. I'm like slamming my hands down on the crib. I just stomped my feet. I screamed at the top of my lungs to where I literally had no voice left.
Oh, wow.
I literally lost it to where I remember I literally just picked myself up and just like crawled into the rocking chair that we had in there and just sat there because I just couldn't stand it anymore.
Wow.
And I had nothing left in me. I had literally screamed and cried it all out and just yelled, and then I remember telling God I'm sorry that I didn't cherish him as much as I should have, and tell him I love him. Asking God, what did I miss? How did I miss it? What could I have done to save him?
Like you felt
like I felt
guilt, like this was somehow
like
your
it was
fault.
my fault because I was in the house down the hallway from him. I didn't hear any noises. I didn't hear anything. He hadn't moved, so he was in the same position that I had just checked on him 30 minutes before. So I had literally, until I went over and picked him up and saw the vomit there, which I thought was drool, I had no indication that there was anything wrong with him. Okay. So I kept running and just being like, I was there, and I did nothing, and I couldn't do anything to save my child. And that feeling haunted me for a long time.
I bet.
And it still somewhat haunts me to this day. That I was there, and it still bothers me. It's like, what did I miss? What did I miss? And on that day, I just needed that to where I just screamed him. When I came back, I actually just noticed that my voice was gone and everything, and I just told her what had happened, and I'm just like, I just need to let it all out.
Yes.
I just need to be there, and I'm glad nobody was in the house.
Right.
Because I didn't want to freak anybody out.
Right.
But I need to do it, and I felt somewhat better, but then I was still grieving and still really in pain.
Absolutely.
So,
what do you tell yourself about that now? Because that is something, regret is something, I've dealt with that on another video too. I mean, it's such a big part of our lives. Or looking back and saying, well, did I doing I mean, you know, I can sit here and console you, but what do you do to help? I mean, or what do you turn to, for example, the authority of God to take a person when he's going to take him, you know, is another thing that you probably have to continually go back to and say, okay, this wasn't my choice when he died or how he died, you know, and take it out of your hands to survive. Is that, what do you do to help with yourself with that?
I mean, I was screaming. One of the things I was screaming was I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to give him back. I know we promised him to you, Lord. I know we dedicated him to you, but I was not ready to give him back.
Wow.
And so, I mean, after all that, you know, just knowing that that's what the Lord had for him. Because also that night when we got back, another thing for us to process was we had a donation place called us. What was it? I can't remember. LifeNet called us and wanted his heart valves.
Oh, yes.
And wanted to know if we would be willing to do that, which we did.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that was another thing to process.
Yes.
And then that's also another hard thing, knowing that he's going to give life-saving heart valves, skin grafts, or whatever to another child that's going to live, and he has. He's actually saved 2 children's lives.
Wow.
And just knowing that that's there, which is, it helps, but also hurts at the same time. And then to just know that that's what the Lord just had for him, and that we got to enjoy him for that time, and to just be thankful for it.
Okay.
Well, I remember your brother, because the night Benjamin died, his brother came to the house. It was kind of late. He'd been in Lynchburg that day for Lindsay's graduation. She graduated from Liberty with a master's that morning.
Okay.
And so they were in Lynchburg, and he drove all the way to our house and showed up and sat with us for several hours. And there was a lot of just silence, but I remember we were talking about, you know, saying things like, you know, why would God even give us Benjamin if he was going to take him so soon?
Wow.
You know, I even remember thinking I would almost rather not have him than to only have him this short time. I didn't feel that way long, though, because I started to realize how thankful I was for every moment I had with him. But I do remember thinking things like, what if I hadn't left that day? You know, because if I had been home, things would have been different, you know, because I would have been there too. And so, not that I could have done anything different to save him that he didn't do.
Sure.
Just that if I had been there, things would have been different. And, you know, so I asked that question, and, you know, we were asking, you know, why would he give him to us only to take him away? And I remember Jonathan saying something about, like, how it was just his time. Like, it doesn't...
Right.
He said, I don't really think there would have been anything you could have done differently. That's just kind of how he felt about it. And I believe he's right.
Yes.
You know, that was the time God had for Benjamin. And it didn't matter how much you did right. And, you know, because he really, you know, Alexander really struggled with blaming himself. And I knew he was going to. I remember just minutes after Benjamin passed away, we were sitting by his hospital bed, and I looked at you and I said, do not blame yourself for this.
Right.
Because I knew he would.
Right.
And I said, I can't live with that. I said, I cannot live with you beating yourself up and feeling guilt and shame, and this is not your fault.
Right.
And, you know, of course, I don't think he could help but feel that way, because he was the one that was there.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do believe that Jonathan kind of helped us in that moment to be like, you know, it's God's providence and his sovereignty. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop that, you know. So that, I feel like that did help us.
We had a lot of people talk to us. We even went to grief counseling.
Okay.
With Pastor Mike McGee.
Yes.
And he was even telling me, he's like, after hearing everything, he's like, you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
Neither one of you did anything wrong, to where you shouldn't feel guilty about anything she shouldn't feel guilty about leaving the house and doing what she did. You shouldn't feel guilty about anything. You didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, because you were doing what you always did.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was the thing, and that's even when I was, you know, my aunt reminded me that day, because I was like, you know, I didn't pick him up. I didn't try to do anything to console him when he was so upset. And she's like, but you were just being a good mom to him because you knew what it was going to do. Yes. And, you know, Benjamin napping in his crib, that had been happening. It's not like he just did this randomly today.
It wasn't anything new. And I was like sitting there and I was just like, but he was in a safe space. Yeah. His crib was safe. A safe place that you can lay him down. He's safe. Nothing can get in there to hurt him. There was nothing around him. He was safe. Mm-hmm. And that's why, I mean, we made sure he was, of course we made sure he was safe and everything like that. I remember
thinking that made it even harder in some ways because, you know, you look to reasons why things have happened, you know, and if we could have pointed to something and said, oh, well, there was a blanket in his crib, or, you know, we fed him something different that day, or, you know, something. But it was all just routine, you know, and even letting him cry it out, we had done. We had done that,
this
you
is
know.
not a new thing.
Yeah.
We did that with Benjamin. We didn't do it as much with Connor because we were first-time parents and it was too hard. But we kind of learned that, you know, it's part of the process.
It is.
And so, you know, just people reminding us that you were doing what you were supposed to be doing, you know, and just that ultimately it's out of our hands.
Right.
You know, that was helpful to us.
What are some of the struggles that you've had toward God, or do you feel like those were the main things of what we just talked about a moment ago?
Yeah, I remember because you said I wasn't ready. I said one of the first things I said in the hospital room was it wasn't long enough.
Yep.
Right.
And I've said that multiple times since. I had said that multiple times since it wasn't long enough. Yeah. You know, which I don't think it ever is.
It never would be, right.
You know, it just felt like such a short time, and of course we weren't prepared for it. But I remember questioning God, and I remember hearing a sermon. I don't remember if it was Dad or somebody else not too long after talking about how that's okay. It's like okay to question God. Like they gave the example of Jesus on the cross asking God why he has forsaken him. So questioning God is not a sin.
Right.
And that helped me because I think I felt like I shouldn't, because God's in control and he's sovereign and I know that. So why would I question him? But it's not wrong to question. You know, it would be wrong to turn away from him.
Sure.
And be angry at him. I don't think we were ever angry at God. I think we were more angry at ourselves.
Okay.
I can say that. I mean, I know he for sure was angry with himself. I think I was a little bit angry with myself somewhat because there was some regret about leaving that day, and then also just, you know, you think back through and you wish you'd held him more. And again, we mentioned he was the second child, and so I feel like, you know, it's the second child, you're more laid back, and so with Connor, I know I held Connor more in those first 6 months than I did Benjamin, just because, you know, he was my first one, and you know, I wanted to keep him safe.
And just one there. Now you're taking care of 2 children.
Right.
True.
And it was a hard road to get pregnant with Connor in the first place. So that's what made it so special.
Sure.
Because after losing our first, having a miscarriage the first time around, it took 2.5 years to get pregnant with Connor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was a battle right there.
Yes.
And so that's why Connor was like, we were so like precious. But then with Benjamin, he was kind of oh my goodness,
almost a surprise.
Almost a surprise type deal, to where we weren't doing anything to prevent it, but we weren't really
weren't stressing it.
Weren't stressing
not expecting it to happen that fast.
We weren't stressing it, and we were kind of like coming up at the time, like, okay, if we want to have another child, this needs to be it. And then come to find out, she went in for some back pain, and they tested her to make sure, because they were going to do a X-ray on her, and turns out she was pregnant. And then we go to the doctor to go do like an ultrasound and everything, and turns out she's almost 5 months pregnant.
Oh wow!
So so we found out the gender, the due date, and
all in one visit.
Everything all in one visit, to where we're like, she's halfway there. So Benjamin, that's why it was just kind of like Benjamin just kind of came on the scene, you know?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this about each other. Because, I've heard of situations where grief drives a couple apart when they've dealt with a child passing away, or you just, you're both grieving your child instead of like a situation where, a wife is grieving her husband and the children are grieving the father and the grandchildren. It's not, you both are equally grieving a child. So how do you cope with that? Like making sure you're drawing closer in the midst of all this instead of being driven apart, because all these circumstances, losing a child, and then the situation, one's home, one's not. I mean, you have so many things that could just make you all decide to be divided at a time like this. How do you work on that?
Well, at first, because I blamed myself, and because I was running around, I wasn't paying attention, I blamed myself for a lot of that stuff that day, for stuff that people were like, you shouldn't be blaming yourself. It was a normal day. You had stuff to do. It sounds like a normal busy Saturday.
Yes.
But I blame myself, and so I, at one point, almost convinced myself that she hated me.
Oh.
That she hated me because it was my fault, because I was there and I didn't do anything. I wasn't able to save him, and because I missed something, he died.
Right.
And so I almost convinced myself that she felt the same way. So I thought that she was like mad and hated me there for a minute.
Okay.
But that was me.
You're thinking it, but that's that guilt you're dealing with. Yeah.
And she never did that. In fact, you even told me that you like, look, I don't blame you. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm not mad at you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did that pretty quick because I knew how you were going to feel. But I really feel like we drew closer to each other, and one of the unique things that we noticed is that, like, when I was having a really, really hard day, he would be able to be kind of the stronger one.
Okay.
Like I would be crying and really missing Benjamin, and he would be able to be strong enough to be able to talk me through it.
Okay.
But then there were times when he was having his breakdown moments, which probably weren't as many or as severe as mine, just because, I cry more. But I would be able to talk to him without crying.
Okay.
So I felt like the Lord gave us strength for each other when we needed it. Like,
Okay.
I don't remember us either one, I don't think we either one really remember a time when we were both so down that we couldn't help pick the other one up.
Okay.
So I feel like that helped us,
Yeah, because I was able to talk to you even when I was at work, because I had a guy at my work, his 6-week-old grandson passed away unexpectedly, and kind of went through something similar.
Okay.
And I was working, and I just remember I had to walk off the floor for 45 minutes because everything that had just happened just kept flooding back.
Yes.
And I was in there bawling my eyes out in my vehicle, and so I went back on the floor, and I work for Hill Phoenix. I build tanks and stuff, so I put 2 tanks together, and then I walked over to my boss and I said, I just did my job. They're green tagged, they're passed an inspection to where they're good to go to the line, and I have no idea what I just did because I have no idea what I'm doing and what I've got going on. I gotta go home.
Okay.
And I was able to, like, when I experienced something like that, like dealing with work, I was able to call her, tell her, and she was able to help me out with that, to where the Lord definitely worked that out, to where when I was having a bad time and crying and dealing with stuff, because I wouldn't call her right away. If I was dealing with that, I would kind of let you know. And she would be able to talk to me and just kind of give me a hug and just hold each other type deal. And
so definitely you would say to someone else, communicating with each other what you're going through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's important.
Communicating with each other. Don't, I mean, I held myself together a lot to make sure you were okay.
Yeah.
But when I was having something really bad going on, I let you know.
Okay.
To where, I didn't tell you every little tiny time I was having like a tiny little moment or a tiny little remiss to where I was like, someone would catch me back every single time. But when it was like really important, like I was going through those hard times, I let her know. And same thing with her.
Okay.
And the communication is key in that, to where you're not going through it alone.
Okay.
Don't go through it alone. It's not.
And you said you went to counseling, grief counseling,
yes.
and that was helpful, I'm sure.
Yes,
I would think.
It was helpful.
Yeah, it was recommended that we do that, and so we did. And I remember people recommending to us that we cling to each other.
Yes.
Like, I think that is a tendency when you lose a child, for the parents to kind of distance themselves.
Right, go through it individually.
Yeah.
Well, you literally just want to just shut down and hide.
Right.
That is honestly a lot of people's tendency, to where when something happens like that, you just literally want to hide and shut down and just disappear for a while. And that's not the best response.
Okay. And how about spiritually, each of you? Do you I'm just wondering, did you individually keep up with your own spiritual life, which I think would help make you stronger to help each other? Does that make sense? You think that played any part in it?
We definitely did, to where we cleaved both of us to the Lord individually, to where we sought Him and looked to Him throughout all of it.
Great.
To where we didn't try to go find some other meaning or anything like that. We went straight to the Lord.
Okay.
And because like Ashley was saying, we didn't blame God, really. I mean, we kind of, like, when I had my breakdown, I was kind of like, God, why'd you do this? Kind of like that. But it was more, I was angry at myself.
Okay.
Than I was actually angry at God. So we were never angry at God, to where we actually we cleaved to Him, knowing because He's the only one that's going to get us through it.
Exactly.
I mean, we still have people tell us that they are proud of how strong we are, and they can't believe that we've been able to do this or that. And I've tried to always be quick to say it's not my strength, you know, it's the Lord's,
Right.
The verse that really helped me was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me, which is a verse that I have loved for a long time. I remember even when I was a teenager, it being like my verse or whatever, but it never meant more to me than it did then. Because people would ask us, how can you, I don't understand how you're, even getting up the next morning.
Right.
And it wasn't us. There's no way. And I can do it, but only because of God.
Right.
And that, just leaning on Him and already having, a strong relationship with the Lord really helped us both.
Yeah.
And, if people see that we're strong, it's because of the Lord.
Yeah.
It's not anything that we've done, because we're human, and this has been a devastating loss. And I don't even think anybody would be surprised if we did have a moment where we didn't want to be in church, or we, felt like we were far from God, but that never happened. But that's nothing to our credit.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just feel like the Lord was carrying us. I even mentioned that to one person at the visitation that mentioned, kind of put it in, how do you even put one foot in front of the other? And I said, I'm not. I'm not. I'm being carried.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's how I felt. I didn't feel like I had any strength to do any of it. So.
Yeah, we were shocked that people would say, you're such a great example, and I just see the Lord beaming through you, and we're just like, I don't know how right now. We're just clinging to the Lord, and so whatever He's showing through you is pure the Lord, because we're trying to get through this, and we're looking to the Lord, and that's it.
Well,
and
that's wonderful, though, that
Him,
you're letting Him shine through you and be, a beacon of hope to people who are going through, whether it's similar or not, who are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
We're learning that our suffering has purpose, and God can use it for His glory if we'll let Him.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how did you tell Connor, and how old was he when Benjamin passed away? And so how do you tell him? Has he comprehended it even now?
Well, I think he has a better understanding now. He was 2
Yep.
Okay.
He was going to be 3 in June.
Okay.
So he was almost 3. So when we got back to the house that evening, we hadn't said anything. We didn't even really know how we were going to tell him.
Yeah.
One of the first, I've probably said this 5 times, but one of the first things I remember saying to you at the hospital was, how are we going to tell Connor?
Okay.
Because I knew that he was going to wonder,
Yeah.
you know. So we didn't know how we were going to do it. We didn't know if we were even going to do it that night, how we were going to bring it up. We were just going to kind of see, I guess, how it went. We didn't talk about it.
No.
But we got home that that evening, and we had been in for a few minutes, and he asked where Benjamin was.
Yeah.
Because he looked around, noticed he wasn't there. You know, the whole time we were at my parents' house, he never noticed, I guess.
Okay.
Never said anything. He was busy playing with his cousins and different things. So then when we get to the house, I think it just hit him that, oh, wait, there's somebody missing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he asked us where he was. And we just kind of exchanged a look like, okay, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so he told him that Benjamin had gone to heaven. He kind of reminded him a little bit about what had happened earlier that day. Because Connor does remember
Yeah,
the
he
ambulance.
remembers the
He
ambulance.
remembers the
Okay.
crew. He
Okay.
remembers that.
Yep.
He
remembers
knew
people
that they
coming
took
in.
him.
Yep.
So he was a little bit confused because he said he was in heaven. So he asked if we could go get him.
Oh.
He said, but I want him here. I wanted.
I wasn't done playing with him.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I wasn't done playing with him.
I wasn't
Wow.
done playing with him.
He didn't say much that night. I remember he
Yeah.
could just kind of laid on you for a few minutes. He was kind of solemn, maybe quiet, but he didn't really say much or ask much. He did ask if we could go get him, and I think something that he said made us realize he thought the crew took Benjamin to heaven.
Okay.
And so we had to be careful how we worded things.
Sure.
Yeah.
To him. So it wasn't until it was sometime that week, maybe even the next week. I don't even remember. I had gotten this book that somebody had recommended.
Yeah.
It's called The Moon is Always Round.
Okay.
And it was a book that was recommended for a child who was grieving a sibling
Okay.
loss.
Okay.
And I don't even remember everything that the book says, but it's talking about, you know, of course, God being always there, even when you don't see the moon, it's there. And I don't remember exactly how it related to heaven just now, but he didn't really ask me any questions about it or anything. I just read it to him, and then he went and, you know, he got in his bed and we were tucking him in, and he just started crying. And we were like, you know, what's going on? What's wrong? And he started telling us that he wanted Benjamin back. He, you know, wants to play with him. He wanted to tickle him. He just kept saying all these heartbreaking things. He was a complete mess. I mean, it took us a while to get him calmed down. Of course, we were both upset too, but we were trying not to get overly upset.
Sure.
Because, you know, we were trying to figure out how to console him. You know, we were probably in his room for close to an hour just trying to get him calmed down. I remember singing with him, praying with him. I think that was what finally calmed him down.
Yeah.
Was praying with him.
Okay.
And, you know, he just...
Yeah, I just think it was just that night.
I think it just kind of hit him.
It just finally hit that Benjamin was gone.
Not coming
That
back.
he was not coming back. He was actually in heaven. He was gone. And it just, I don't think he knew the full reality of it, but enough to know that his brother was gone.
Okay.
And that he wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think it just finally kind of sunk in a little bit right to there. And so
Yeah,
it took a little while because he kept asking, "Where's Benjamin? Can we go see him?"
He would
and
ask
stuff,
about
you know?
him different times and say he missed him and things like that. He's never really gotten really upset since that night. You know, he's had a few times where I could tell he's sad about it, but never really had a real bad time of, you know, melting down over it.
He's teared up a little bit.
But,
about
you know,
it.
he has had some times when he's been sad. But,
Yeah.
you know, one of the things that really we noticed about him was that even whenever I was having a really hard time, Connor would be the one that would say, "Let's pray."
Yeah.
Like, he
Yeah.
was the one who, I think he obviously had just learned that from us, or,
Yeah.
just from being around people who, that's their response, is to go to the Lord.
Okay.
And that's something that we noticed about Connor, is that when we would be upset, because, I tried not to get upset in front of him, but I did. And I still do.
How would you not?
But he would ask, what's wrong with Mommy? And I would say I'm missing Benjamin, or he would say Mommy's missing Benjamin, and he'd come hug me, and then he would just start praying or saying let's pray. He'd say let's pray and things like that. So he's actually really helped me, because he's been a real comfort to me. I mean, he's, as young as he was able to help me, and that's something that I've really appreciated, and something that's been really, really neat about Connor. And he's very, very sensitive to my feelings, especially, and even yours.
Yeah.
But I think he's sensitive to everybody's feelings, honestly. It's just kind of the kid he is, but I think he's more so because of that. And he has seen a lot of people cry, and he's had other loss since that. He's some other family and things like that, and so he's just turned 5 in June, so he's still not really old enough to understand it, but he has had more talk about heaven than most kids,
most 5-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
And I think as best he can does understand, now, and
for a while there, because we said the words that we said was Benjamin was sick, and so they had to come help him, and because they weren't able to help him, God took him to heaven with him to help him, because they couldn't do anything to help him, so God took him home with him.
Okay.
And so for a while there, he was afraid every single time somebody went to the hospital and was sick. Mm-hmm. He was like, are they going to die?
Oh, wow.
And so he was afraid that if somebody went into the hospital and was sick or something like that, mm-hmm. that they were going to die just like Benjamin. So it took him a while. It took us a while to convince him that that's not
it doesn't always happen
the
that
case.
way.
That's not always the case. So we had to. So he had to. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that he didn't quite get, and for a while there he was just kind of still questioning mm-hmm. stuff and worried about things and stuff like that.
Yeah, he definitely went through some time where you could tell he was anxious and fearful about things, and it didn't always come out as obvious, but there was definitely some months where he struggled.
Yeah.
And I think it was just because he knew something wasn't right.
Right.
And he wasn't able to really explain it.
Yeah.
And there have been some times since that he's been kind of off and upset, and he has told us that he misses Benjamin. But I think that there's still some times that there's even still some times that I'll be having an off day, and I'm not sure why, and then I'll realize an anniversary's coming up,
yes.
or something has happened that's kind of made me think of Benjamin or something. So I think that's probably what happens with Connor as well.
Absolutely.
I think that it's helped that we talk about Benjamin. One of my biggest fears still really is that Connor won't remember him.
Okay.
Because he didn't have him for very long, and he was so young when he passed away. So when Connor grows up, is he even going to remember that he had another brother?
Okay.
And so that's one of the things that I think that we've been really careful to try to avoid by talking about him often. Okay. And we have pictures of him in the house, and we do something on his birthday, and we take Connor to the cemetery with us. Mm-hmm. We didn't right away. Probably the first year we didn't take him because we just felt like he was too young.
Sure.
And we still have only told him that it's just a place we go to remember Benjamin.
Okay.
We don't tell him that Benjamin is there because I don't want to confuse him.
Right. That's hard to understand.
I don't know that I think that he would probably understand now because he's pretty smart if we told him, that it's just his body there and, that kind of thing. But we always just say we're going there to remember Benjamin. It's a special place we go, and we decorate his plot and stuff like that. So I think that because we keep him a part of our lives, that almost, I guess, even helps him in some way be able to because we talk about things, you
Yeah.
know, and so Connor feels like he can open up and talk to us about things. So that's another thing that I didn't want to happen, was that he would clam up and not be
Okay.
able to tell us how he felt about something.
Right.
Sure.
Because I feel like it's important to be able to talk through things. And so
Right.
we've always been very transparent about how we feel in front of him, you know, to a certain degree.
Sure.
And I think that that has helped as well, because he needs to be able to talk about it, because he's surely grieving. I mean, there's no denying that he had a big loss as well.
Yes.
So I think that it's important that you create that space for him to be able to talk about it. And I think with us being transparent, that has helped.
Great.
Yeah.
Great advice for others who might go through or be going through
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
same type thing. I think while we're on this topic, we'll go ahead with this next question. As far as now, you are expecting, okay? And I'm trying to figure out, how many months along are you?
I'm 31 weeks, so
Okay.
like 7 months, I guess.
Okay. And due in October. Okay. So I'm curious how that affects, how the grief and the loss of Benjamin, how that plays into or affects that part of your life right now. I mean,
Yeah.
are you living, there's got to be fears,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yet, are you letting yourself be excited, or is
Yeah.
there a guilt from that? I mean, what is this like?
Kind of all the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is kind of all the above. We are excited and glad, and also kind of like, oh my goodness, here we go again. And then we are scared because
Sure.
we're like, we did everything right, and yet this still happens.
Okay.
So we don't know what to do
Okay.
to prevent it. And then we also are just kind of a little worried that, are we going to get too wrapped up to where we're going to Benjamin's going to get kind of put a little further, get put to
Right.
the back.
Right.
And then also we're kind of also worried about Connor, because he has made comments about maybe the Lord will let us have him for a little bit longer,
Wow.
where he's
He's
worried.
Wow.
even asked,
He's even-
will God let us keep this baby forever? I
Yeah.
hope God lets us keep
Yeah.
this baby
So
forever.
So
I know that the
he's
fears in
worried,
his
yeah.
He's
heart
saying
as
out
well.
loud what
Yes.
the rest of us are thinking,
he,
right?
He is legitimately scared because he doesn't want to lose another brother,
Of course.
and we understand that. So we're trying to calm him and try and reassure him that the Lord is going to provide and everything's going to be okay, and that
We just have to trust
in
the Lord about it. You know, we
and
don't.
just pray about it, and meanwhile we're also telling ourselves we trust the Lord,
Trust
pray
the Lord.
about it,
Pray about it.
don't freak out, and
No.
because it is scary, because we can do every single thing right, and one of the things that my sister-in-law's mom told us is that when she was working with the babies and stuff, they would have the baby's code in there, and there was nothing they could do about it.
Right.
Where they had a small chance of saving them, and I mean, they were hooked up to monitors and stuff
Right.
like that. So I mean, the monitors go off beep, and they're right there on it right away. And sometimes they're able to save them, and sometimes they're not. To
That's
where,
right.
so I mean, it's just like we are trying to remind ourselves to not freak out and panic and go overboard with it, and to enjoy it, but then also we're still trying to take as much precaution as we can
Sure.
through it, just for our own peace of mind,
Mm-hmm.
and also truly trust the Lord, because that's the only thing that is going to truly get us through it.
So when we discussed trying again, because we were done with the
Yeah.
two, we were
Yeah,
like, this
we
is
were.
good.
Okay.
We were.
Okay.
We were.
Because our
we
faith
were.
felt complete.
We felt complete.
Right.
We felt complete.
But after Benjamin died, and even pretty soon after, we had a conversation about, do we want to try again? And we ended up kind of tabling the conversation because it wasn't the time to make a decision like that. But I remember even having conversations with friends and things about how I would be terrified. I'm like, would I even be able to enjoy
Sure.
the pregnancy, and would I enjoy the first few months of the baby, for the fear of it all? And we just ultimately, came to the decision to try. but it did take a while. So we were kind of like, okay, maybe it's not going to happen, and stuff like that. But when we found out, and I like just on my own put in like in the due date calculator on Google or whatever that it was going to be October, that was kind of like, I don't even know how we felt. We just, because Benjamin was born in October.
Oh, wow.
And the due date, the original due date that app gave me was Benjamin's birthday.
Oh my.
October 12th.
Yep,
and so we just looked at each other. I just looked at him and I was like, is this really happening? Like, this is crazy. And I didn't know how to feel. Like, if this is like, wow, the Lord really has a sense of humor, or if it's like, or is this the Lord helping us,
like a blessing,
healing.
Mm-hmm.
So then the due date ended up being the 10th, which is still right around his birthday.
Sure. Right.
So that was kind of weird, because I was like, I don't know if I like that or if I don't like it, because I liked Benjamin having his own time, and so it was just kind of a weird thought there, but definitely, like you mentioned, fear, anxiety, all of that. And I don't know when and if that's going to get better. There are times when I'm okay with it and times when I'm not. Okay. There were first few weeks I really struggled with it. With the fact that we were going to be doing this again, and am I even going to be able to enjoy it and things like that. And I worried about how Connor would feel. Because we're bringing another baby home. Will this one get to stay? Thoughts, fears that he even expressed to us. But I do feel like that it has somewhat been healing already.
Okay.
I do feel that. I don't know how to explain it, but I do feel like the Lord is healing a little bit of my broken heart with it, because it is some excitement, obviously, with a new baby coming. And, but like he also mentioned, like, we don't want it to replace Benjamin.
Right.
And that was even I even had that thought that people are going to think we're just trying to replace Benjamin.
Right.
Especially if we did it real quick after.
Sure.
Which it turned out not as quick after as we wanted it to be.
Right.
But still, I was worried that people would think we're just trying to replace him. And I don't want that. I still want Benjamin to be a part of our lives, as
absolutely,
the way he always has been.
I refer to Benjamin when I talk to people and tell them Connor's my oldest, and then Benjamin, I'm like, I can't call him my youngest anymore. I got to call him my middle. So Benjamin to me will always be my middle child.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if the new child his name's William. If William turns out to be Lord gives us to him for 30 or 40 years, whatever, Benjamin will always be my middle
Your
child.
middle, absolutely.
And so that's what I've personally determined that, and that's just made me feel better.
Good.
Where it's like, it's Connor's my oldest, Benjamin's my middle,
absolutely,
and then William's my youngest. And that's just how the order's going to go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so, I mean, once I just felt like that, to where it's like, to where I actually was like, do I call William my youngest and just my oldest my youngest, or
you don't realize till you go through something that there's so many weird things
and so many
say and explain, and when really you don't have to.
So many things, and it's just like just trying to think it all out, and then just really making that determination of not going to forget Benjamin, because he's going to be forever in our hearts.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna love him and care about him, and we still have pictures up of him and talk about him, and I mean, we still keep him present.
Well, anyone who's had a baby for days or weeks or months realizes, I know sometimes we worry what people think, but the bottom line is they realize that's a lifetime. That child is yours. You have those memories. You have that connection. It doesn't matter that it was not as long as someone else's.
Right.
Yeah, and it's even sometimes I catch myself because people will ask me how many kids I have, especially going to my appointments.
Yeah.
They always, just to make conversation, how is this your first child or whatever, and it's like, okay, how am I going to explain this?
Right.
Because it's actually my 5th pregnancy.
Yeah.
Because I had an ectopic, Connor, Benjamin, chemical pregnancy, William.
Okay.
So it's like, but that's just so much to explain.
Exactly.
And I almost feel weird, but I don't want it to be weird because I believe that the ectopic and the chemical pregnancy those are humans.
Okay.
I believe that. And so,
we call them that. They are classified medically as that, to where they recognize that she was pregnant,
but I don't know that they counted as children.
I don't think they count them as children.
But I do, and
the Lord does, and we do as well.
But sometimes I catch myself just like, because it's easier saying I only have this many or whatever.
Right.
So that's always interesting to try and navigate because we have 3 babies in heaven.
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
It's
Now-
kind of wild to think about that.
And there are specific things you're doing to keep Benjamin's memory alive.
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah, so we do, we have pictures of him up in the house still. And then we just try to talk about him.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do, on his birthday, it's been tradition to go to the pumpkin patch, and then we'll go to the cemetery, spend some time there, and we, even on the anniversary of the day he died, we usually will gather at the cemetery with family, and so we try to just make him a part of things the best we can. I wear his name.
I was going to
around my
say,
neck.
you've got the name Benjamin.
Yes, I wear that around my neck. He's got his
and
name.
you've got
He's got
your
both
tag,
boys.
right?
Yeah.
Dog tag right there.
How precious.
Benjamin, the nursery was decorated in dinosaurs.
Okay.
So dinosaurs remind us of Benjamin. So
Sure.
I have lots of dinosaur earrings and
And I noticed the
different
earrings you have
dinosaur-
on say mama,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And are they, turn them this way, are they leopard print?
Yes.
Which is my personal
I know you love
favorite.
that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we will, and Connor knows that dinosaurs remind us of Benjamin.
Okay.
And so if he has something dinosaur or whatever, we try to use dinosaurs to kind of help us
Sure.
remember him and different things like that. Yeah.
We're 2 years, a little over 2
Yeah.
years out from Benjamin's death. And as much as I wish you all didn't have to go through this to help others, we want what we go through and the suffering we have to be able to help others, to use it for God's glory. And so what are some of the things that you would say to someone who might be going through something similar to what you're going through?
Cling to the Lord.
Okay.
Lean on Him. Hold to each other. And hold to your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Just hold to your family, because her family, my family, our church family, and people that we didn't even really know just came out and just helped us out a lot. And just really their prayers and just them just showing support really helped a lot. And just, of course, communication with each other was great, to where that helped us through a lot of it, to where we were able to help each other through a lot of the rough spots.
Okay.
And then the Lord is the only reason why she and I are able to be here
Okay.
and to be functioning.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I would also say there's no timetable for grieving.
Right.
Time does not make it better. That's one of the things that people say. And don't feel guilty if you're still struggling
Absolutely.
plus years out. I think talk about the child. I think that really helps.
Okay.
I think that sometimes, and it's your personal opinion, or it's up to each individual person, but I feel like some people would like to just forget about it, and some people don't. For us personally, we want to still talk about Benjamin,
Okay.
and I remember someone saying something to me, it was the Thanksgiving right after. She said something to me about bringing it up to me, she was kind of worried about bringing it up.
Sure, yes.
She didn't want to be the one to make me upset.
Right.
And I told her, I said, I'm already missing him, so you're not going to make me more sad by bringing him up. In fact, I want you to bring him up.
Yes.
So, talk about him or her. And I hope that even people who haven't experienced the loss would learn that that's what we want.
Yeah.
You want to talk about your person.
We want to talk about whoever it is. You're not going to make us more sad by bringing them up. If you make us cry, that's okay. Don't feel bad. So I think that, someone else who's experiencing a loss like this, just know that it's long. It's a journey. You are not, there's no way to get off this train, and you're going to be on it for the rest of your life. So don't think that there's going to be a time when, now obviously the Lord does heal you, and you're able to talk about it. Like, I know that we wouldn't have been able to do this 1 week after.
Right.
But, and I don't know that we're, so far out that it's not fresh still. But we have been able to get through talking about it without, completely losing it. So there is some healing that comes, but there's not really a timetable of when you're going to feel better. So just know that you're in it for the long haul. So like he said, lean on the Lord and to each other. Any family and friends that you have that are there for you, lean on them. Because you're going to need that to help you get through it. And love the people you have still here. That's one of the things that I feel like has deepened our relationship with Connor, is that we still have Connor,
Right.
So like everything is so much more special when you have the perspective of you had a child and now you don't. So if you have another child still to love on, don't take any moment for granted. I mean, we're all human and we get busy in life and forget, to take to enjoy every moment. But that's something that I think that is important, is that we don't take for granted the people that we still have here with us.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you. I know that when people prepare to talk on here with me, they write out some thoughts, and like in y'all's case, you've discussed some things and you're reliving it. It's all brought up very fresh in your minds. It's exhausting, truthfully, and you'll be exhausted after talking about it today, because it wears on you. And so I have to say from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate that you are willing to talk about your story and to talk about Benjamin. It's not comforting to say his life wasn't in vain, but it wasn't, and we have to just cling to that. God has a purpose for each thing. So, and I'll re-emphasize and let you talk about this, that not only was his life not in vain for what it will do for what you're suffering and how you will even help others, but you mentioned specifically that parts were donated.
Yes.
And so he has gone on to help others
Yes, he has.
in those situations. So what would you like to say about that?
Yes, so the night that he died, we received a call from LifeNet Donor Services, and because it's a kind of a crucial thing, they wanted to reach out and see if we were interested in Benjamin being a donor. And he said, you don't have to tell me tonight, but I'm going to call back in the morning so you can discuss it with your spouse and make a decision. Well, there was no discussion. We both wanted to do that. 100%. Benjamin doesn't need his body where he's going. He didn't need his body where he was going.
Right.
So we knew that there was no question. So that next morning, a lady called me from there, and we went through the application process over the phone. It was difficult. I had to, answer questions about him, talk about him, and it was hard to, I guess, relinquish him to do that. But
yes,
there was never a question we wanted to. So at this point, we know of, and that he has donated heart valves and saved the lives of 2 other children.
It's amazing.
We only know that they're from Texas and Florida. They have not reached out to us. We would love to be able to hear from them.
Yeah.
But if we never do, we know that we did the right thing. And, it is like, it hurts some because we want him here with us. We didn't want that to happen for him, but it is somewhat healing to know that he has been able to save the lives of 2 other children, and not knowing what these 2 children will grow up to be, and now their families have a chance of enjoying them for much longer.
Yes.
So it does help to know that he has been able to do that. That's, I guess, one of the positives that's come out of it, is that. And they've been great to us. We've had great experiences with anybody who's ever talked to us, all of the people.
Okay.
And we've gone to events. They have an event at Christmas, and then they have one in April, because April is National Donate Life Month, I think.
Okay.
And they have these events that they host, and you can come and bring something that reminds you of your loved one, and they there's different ceremonies and stuff, and that has helped us because it gets a way for us and we hope to do that each year, because that's a way we can kind of keep
honor
him. And we hear stories. It's not our story, but we hear other stories from recipients and donor moms and donor dads and donor families, and it resonates with us even though it's not our story.
Right.
And so it's really neat, and we've enjoyed being able to do that.
I'm guessing, do you take a dinosaur to
Yes.
the events?
Yes.
Yes,
I
we do.
love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. We definitely.
How
do.
special. Well, I hope that one day either the parents or the children
Yes.
who received it will be at a point where they can let you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So I appreciate the help you've been, sharing about him and your circumstance, and then giving glory to God for what he's been able to do so far through what you've been through.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you for
It's our
asking
pleasure.
us. We're very humbled, but we're thankful that we get to share our story, and we hope that we're able to help somebody else.
Oh, I think it will. I'm sure it will. I'm positive it will. It will help others. So
Yeah.
Good.
thank you very much.
It helps my Nana if you're watching on YouTube to like and subscribe. If you are listening on the podcast, please like and follow. We would love for you to do that now to help our channel grow and become a blessing to others.
We appreciate you joining us today at Speak Your Grief with Sonia. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube as new episodes are added weekly. Thank you again for joining us as we unpack our grief. We hope you have been reminded that you are not alone in this journey.